Okay, this is the introduction for lab number 13, the gravity simulation, and I just have you pop open one of these fat simulations. And some things that we kind of know is we know Newton's universal law of gravitation that says that the force of gravity, the force an object will feel due to another one, simply by the very nature that it has mass, is related to big G, which is a constant, multiplied by the mass of the first object, multiplied by the mass of the second object, divided by the radius squared. And if we had two objects, say these two objects right there, there's going to be an action force and a reaction force, and it's going to be equal in magnitude and opposite in direction. What I have you do in this simulation is I just have you mess around with the mass of the two objects, and I might have you mess around with the distance between those objects and just measure the forces that are on them. So here I've popped open the simulation, and you can kind of see that I've got the forces that we're interested in right there, and I can mess around with the masses of the object, pretty straightforward, just like that. And I can also move the objects to the various locations that it's asked me to move them to. Then what I have you do is I have you kind of move down here and think about some real life applications of it. And I'm going to say, well, the force of gravity between planets is what causes them to orbit. So let's go ahead and take a look at this simulation, and I have you go to the model option, but keep in mind that that's not to scale, and just click over to see the to scale option just to show you how small we really are in this world. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have the Earth orbiting the Sun, and just pay attention to the directions. What happens if you turn velocity off, and what happens if you mess around with the mass of the Sun or with the distance to the Earth. So let's go ahead and pop this guy open. So there's the to scale, and there's the model one. And what we're going to do is we're just going to set this thing in motion. And actually what we can do is we can put these checkboxes on there, and what we can do is we can mess around with the mass of the Sun, we can mess around with the mass of the Earth, and we can turn gravity on and off just like that. We can also mess around with where the Earth is, and that's pretty much everything that you need to know.